All right, before you start your worksheet, make sure that you watch the little short video that you were supposed to do before this. It's a little short Khan Academy video that explains this better. But what you're going to do is work it from the inside out. So your job here is to find f of something. But first you have to find g of 2. And then you're going to put it in here. So your job here is to find f of g of 2. So you can't figure out your answer until you go and find g of 2. So I'm going to do that first. Let me change this. Alright, so I'm going to find f of. Now I'm going to go off and find g of 2. So I go here and find g of 2 is 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. So you did what you were supposed to do. You went and found g of 2. And so you put the answer in here, negative 1. And then you find f of negative 1 to finish it off. So you've got to find the inside before you can do the outside. So now I go to function f, which is x squared minus x. And I fill in negative 1. Negative 1 squared gives me 1. Minus a negative gives me plus 1, so my answer is 2. And on this one, the first thing I've got to find is f of negative 1. So I'm going to go off and find f of negative 1 to figure out the output for this becomes the input for function g. So I've got to find out what this number is before I can go forward. So I'm going to go to f of negative 1. So that's going to be blank squared minus blank. Put in negative 1. Sorry. So that's going to give me, wow, sorry, let me write this a little better. I'm finding the inside, f of negative 1. In parentheses. So that gives me 1 minus negative or plus 1. So I know the answer to f of negative 1 is actually 2. So this is what's happening. I'm just going to rewrite it so you can see it. G of f of negative 1. So what you're supposed to do is go find f of negative 1. We did that. And we got 2. And so now I know what f of negative 1 is, so I'm going to go find g of 2. So you're working it from the inside out. So now I go finally to function g, which is 1 minus x, which is 2. So my answer is negative 1 to this one. So what do we have to find first here? So pause and think about it. The first thing we have to find here is g of 5. So I'm going to go to function g, and I'm going to find g of 5. So I'm going to go off to the side, g of 5. I'll work the inside first, is 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. So this is what goes in the parentheses, f of g of 5. But now we know g of 5 is negative 4. So now my direction is to find f of negative 4. So we go to function f, which is x squared minus x, and you put in negative 4. So it gives me 16 minus a negative is plus. So the answer to this is 20. Alright, now on the next one, think about what you're going to find first. The first thing you're going to find is to find g of blank. You've got to find out what this is. So you've got to go do this job first. F of negative 5. It's like putting one answer inside of another one. F of negative 5. Be sure you're at function f. And we have blank squared minus blank. Then we'll put in negative 5. So it gives me 25 minus a negative or plus 5. Gives me 30. So I'm going to find g of 30. So I go to function g, so follow your directions, find f of negative 5. When you get that answer, fill it into function g. which is 1 minus 30. 1 minus x. G of x is 1 minus 30, and so you get negative 29. All right, this one's interesting. So first thing you got to do is go find f of negative 3. All right, be sure you're going to the right function. Here's your command f. It's right here. So you go blank squared minus blank, put in negative 3. That'll give you 9 minus negative or plus 3. So that gives me 12. So you just fill that in right here. F of negative 3 is 12. And now you fill that into function f. So you're going to find f of negative 3, which is 12. And then you're going to find f of 12. F of 12 is blank squared minus blank. 12 squared is 144 minus 12 is 132. All right, so you might want to try this one and pause and then come back and check. I would first find g of negative 1. So I'm finding g of negative 1. Once I know the answer, I'm going to put it right in here. All right, so be careful with your parentheses. G is 1 minus x. You're putting in negative 1. You get 1 minus negative 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So now you know g of negative 1 can be replaced by 2. And then go back to function g. And you say 1 minus x, which is 2. So you get negative 1. Okay, so the point of all of this is that you go off and find f of negative 5 first. Once you know f of negative 5, you fill it in, like right here, and then you keep solving. So I've got to have f of whatever's in front of this. So I've got to find f of negative 3. Once I know what it is, I fill it in and finish the problem. So now I'm going to the next one. All right, so now that was with equations. So you've got to be good at evaluating functions with equations, with tables, and with graphs. So we're going to hit all 3 of those. All right, so I'm going to find g of 0 in the table. So here's g of x. And this table tells me somebody's already filled in all the numbers, so I don't have to do any equations. They filled it in and they must have gotten 4. So I'm going to say f of g of 0, which somebody must have gotten 4. And now my directions are to find f of 4. So it's cool, it's reading tables. The final answer is 2. Be good to pause at any time you think you know it and then come back and check your answers. So I need g of, let's go find k of 2. If I had an equation, I would have to find k of 2, but somebody's already done the work for me. So I'm going to have k of 2 is 0. So I know the answer to that. K of 2 is 0. And now I've got to find g of 0. G of 0 is 4. Again, I encourage you to try some of these on your own. So on the inside, I've got to find g of negative 6, which somebody's already done for me. G of negative 6 is 2. So I answered that question. And now I've got to find k of 2, which is 0. All right, g of h of 4. So I need g of. Now let's find h of 4. H of 4 is negative 6. And then I need g of negative 6. So let's see what somebody got for their answer, which is 2. Try these on your own and then come back and check. G of k of 4. Let's get k of 4, which is 3. So now I've got to find g of 3. Oh, which we don't have in our table, so maybe I did something wrong. This one's not possible because we can't find g of 3. So there is no g of 3 that we know about. Unless that, yeah, there's no g of 3. So we'll come back to E. Let me rework it to make sure I've done it right. K of 4 is 3. And then I've got to find G of 3, which they don't tell us what it is. We might can estimate, but we really don't know enough information. It could be anything. So let's just call that one for right now undefined. All right, this one, oh, this notation, all of these could be written this way. So let's take this one. F of G of 0 can also be written this way, F of G of 0. Some people even call it fog. It's not a times, it's an open circle. So this one's G of K of 2. But I always like to write it G of K of 2 so you can really see the inside out. So let's write this one. This is F of G of H of 2. So you have lots of stacks here. So I'm going to find H of 2. So H of 2 is 4. So I'm going to fill that in right here. So I have F of G of 4. It's kind of like playing a game. Then I have F of. So now I need G of 4. G of 4 is 0. And then finally my final answer is F of 0, which is negative 6. So it's an inside, 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 inside to outside. It's like a stacking, those Russian stacking dolls. All right, this one's interesting. Is F of F of F of 0. So the first thing I have to do is find F of 0. So I have F of F of, now I'm going to find F of 0. All right, so F of 0 is negative 6. Then I'm going to find F of negative 6, which is 4. Then I'm going to find F of 4, which is 2. This one is an F of G of H of G of 2. So let's work it from the inside out. Let's start with G of 2. And we'll put that into F of G of H of G of 2. G of 2 is negative 6. So what's next? Come from the inside. F of G of H of negative 6. H of negative 6 is 0. So I have F of G of 0. G of 0 is 4. And then finally I follow my chain to F of 4, which I finally got 2. So it's like building blocks. All right, on this one, now we do it with a graph instead of an equation or a chart. So we have G of F of 0. Now F of X is the graph composed of 3 line segments. So these are lines right here. And so this is F of X, this slanted one, F of X. And G of X is curved. So this is G of X right here. All right, so I'm going to have G of, I've got to go find F of 0. So if I go to F, I'll look and see what happens at 0. F of 0 is 2, and then I go find G of 2. G of 2 is 1. You might want to try one on your own. All right, so F of X is the one with the 3 lines, and G of X is this curved one right here. So I'm going to find F of G of 2. All right, so let's first go find G of 2. So make sure you're on G and go out 1, 2, and see what your answer is. Looks like it's 1. And then follow the directions, go to F, which is this one, and see what happens at 1. I get 3. All right, let's do G. Now let's find F of negative 4. On the one that is F, which is this one, which is the one with the lines, the straight lines. So f of -4 is 0, and then I'm going to be on the curved one and find g of 0, which is 0. This is f of g of -2. This one is g, the curve. So I'm going to find g of -2. Looks like it's 1. And then I'm going to find f, which is this one, of 1. Looks like it's 3. Write the domain and range of f of x. They've kind of given it to us here. At least the domain. Alright, so it tells me that f has endpoints at -5, -1, and at 3, 5. Right here. So if I'm looking for domain, copy your review for the test, my domain picks up at -5 included, so my domain, I'll call that D for domain, goes from -5 hard bracket, and my domain lasts on the f of x until I get to 3, and it's enclosed. And then my range, so let's find our range. Sorry. Sorry. I'll just draw another line. We'll just get rid of this one. Alright, so range, we're going to go low to high. So what's the first range we get to on f of x? Is -1, and it goes all the way up to 5. So I see things everywhere from -1 to 5, inclusive. Alright, the domain and range of g of x. G of x goes from back here to there. Look at the U-shape one. Look at the U-shape. And this tells me this starts at -5 and it goes to 4. So what this is doing is giving me the endpoints, -5, 5, and 4.5, 5. So I know that it lasts from -5 to 4.5, and the range goes from 0 until the highest point that we get to. It doesn't have arrows, so it goes from 0 to 5. This one's the domain, this one's the range. And then the last question, function. So answer this on your own. Make sure that you try it, and we'll talk about your answers in class tomorrow. Making sure you do number 4 about h of d represents the amount of homework problems assigned. That's the inside function right here. D days into the school year, and the function t of p represents the amount of time and minutes it takes to complete p problems. And so we got 128. So see if you can answer number 4, and make sure you write something down. Make sure you try it.